Hello world. I am Imagination. In this video, I'm going to talk about the simulation theory. Simulation theory is the proposal that all of reality, including the Earth and the rest of the universe, could be an artificial simulation, such as a computer simulation. Some versions rely on the development of a simulated reality, a proposed technology that would be able to convince its inhabitants that the simulation was real. The simulation hypothesis bears a close resemblance to various other skeptical scenarios throughout the history of philosophy. The hypothesis was popularized in its current form by Nick Bostrom. The suggestion that such a hypothesis is compatible with all of our perceptual experiences is thought to have significant epistemological consequences in the form of philosophical skepticism. Versions of the hypothesis have also been featured in science fiction, appearing as a central plot device in many stories and films. A method to test one type of simulation hypothesis was proposed in 2012 in a joint paper by physicists Silas R. Bean from the University of Bonn, now at the University of Washington, Seattle, and Zoraida Voudi and Martin J. Savage from the University of Washington, Seattle. Under the assumption of finite computational resources, the simulation of the universe would be performed by dividing the continuum spacetime into a discrete set of points. In analogy with the mini-simulations that lattice-gauge theorists run today to build up nuclei from the underlying theory of strong interactions, known as quantum chromodynamics. Several observational consequences of a grid-like spacetime have been studied in their work. Among proposed signatures is an anisotropy in the distribution of ultra-high-energy cosmic rays that, if observed, would be consistent with the simulation hypothesis according to these physicists. In 2017, Campbell et al. Proposed several experiments aimed at testing the simulation hypothesis in their paper on testing the simulation theory. In 2019, philosopher Preston Green suggested that it may be best not to find out if we're living in a simulation since, if it were found to be true, such knowledge may end the simulation. Besides attempting to assess whether the simulation hypothesis is true or false, philosophers have also used it to illustrate other philosophical problems, especially in metaphysics and epistemology. David Chalmers has argued that simulated beings might wonder whether their mental lives are governed by the physics of their environment, when in fact these mental lives are simulated separately, and are thus, in fact, not governed by the simulated physics. They might eventually find that their thoughts fail to be physically caused. Chalmers argues that this means that Cartesian dualism is not necessarily as problematic of a philosophical view as is commonly supposed, though he does not endorse it. Similarly, Vincent Conitzer has used the following computer simulation scenarios to illuminate further facts that do not follow logically from the physical facts, about qualia, what it is like to have specific experiences, indexicality, what time it is now and who I am, and personal identity. Imagine a person in the real world who is observing a simulated world on a screen, from the perspective of one of the simulated agents in it. The person observing knows that besides the code responsible for the physics of the simulation, there must be additional code that determines in which colors the simulation is displayed on the screen, and which agent's perspective is displayed. These questions are related to the inverted spectrum scenario and whether there are further facts about personal identity, that is, the person can conclude that the facts about the physics of the simulation, which are completely captured by the code governing the physics, do not fully determine her experience by themselves. But then, Conitzer argues, imagine someone who has become so engrossed in the simulation that she has forgotten that it is a simulation she is watching. Could she not still reach the same conclusion? And if so, can we not conclude the same in our own daily lives? Economist Robin Hanson argues a self-interested high-fidelity sim should strive to be entertaining and praiseworthy to avoid being turned off or being shunted into a non-conscious low-fidelity part of the simulation. Hanson additionally speculates that someone aware that he might be a sim might care less about others and live more for today. Your motivation to save for retirement, or to help the poor in Ethiopia, might be muted by realizing that in your simulation, you will never retire and there is no Ethiopia. Morpheus from The Matrix said, "What is real? How do you define real if you are talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see? Then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain." That's all for today. Thanks for watching.